with a dozen Crimson Tide players. Nick Sirianni's.
This just isn't enough for roughing the passer.
He's leading us, so, whenever you see him fighting through adversity, it gives us momentum, it gives us energy. We got it.
I had this game circled on my calendar for the past 2 weeks. Easily the most anticipated Sunday Night Football matchup we had since, well, the Dallas Cowboys versus the San Francisco 49ers. And we all know how that one turned out. But there was a lot at stake for both the Miami Dolphins and the Philadelphia Eagles. So before we get to the content, if you want to support these post-game recaps, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, every time PrizePicks has done this, it's practically been free money for us. For the opening weeks of the NFL season, we've had a lot of success on PrizePicks. I've been showing you guys my picks on Instagram, and I post my picks there for free consistently at the Flight Mike. And typically, you need to at least make 2 correct picks in order to make money. But in this case, PrizePicks is giving us a free Steph Curry square. Steph Curry only needs 1 point in order for his square to convert. So we just need to get 1 pick right at minimum to make money here. So if you're an NFL fan, I'm looking at Tyreek Hill scoring a touchdown versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're an NBA fan, I'm looking at Michael Porter Jr. to grab more than 5.5 rebounds. Make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a $100 deposit match when you sign up at PrizePicks. This is easily my favorite promo of the year. We've had a lot of success with it in the past. I'm going to show you additional picks on my Instagram story. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The 5-1 Miami Dolphins have been the most dominant offense in the entire NFL, doing something that we've never seen before. Mike McDaniel seems to be on this manifest destiny to assemble the fastest players on earth to join the Miami Dolphins. So far, he's succeeding in the form of Devin Achane, who wasn't playing in this game, obviously, Raheem Mostert, who looks shockingly fast for a halfback that is in his early 30s, Tyreek Hill, who is on a mission to potentially gain over 2,000 yards receiving in one season, and leading into this game, he seemed to be on pace to do so, and Jalen Waddle, who is one of the best complementary wide receivers in the entire NFL. You can like him or hate him, but you have to admit, Miami Dolphins are one of the most exciting teams to watch in the entire NFL, dominating their opponents up until this point. But there was one statistic coming into this game that may have made Miami Dolphins fans slightly uncomfortable, and that's the fact that so far this season, the Dolphins haven't really defeated anyone too significant. Now, winning in the NFL is very difficult, and I don't want to discredit the Miami Dolphins for any victories that they achieved, especially as a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, who have lost to the Arizona Cardinals, and were the Arizona Cardinals' only win this season so far. But regardless, if you're a Dolphins fan, you might be a little concerned about the fact that so far the Miami Dolphins have defeated the 2-3 Los Angeles Chargers, the 1-5, well now 2-5 New England Patriots, the 1-5 Denver Broncos, the 2-5 New York Giants, and the winless Carolina Panthers. They still have to face off against the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, and Baltimore Ravens. And their biggest test starts tonight against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now again, this isn't to discredit the Miami Dolphins because they've been so exciting to watch, but would they be able to keep up that same energy against one of the best teams in the entire NFL, which is the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that truly is coming out here with vengeance on their mind. You see, last week, the Philadelphia Eagles lost a game that they really shouldn't have lost, losing to a New York Jets team that is trying its best to eke out as many wins as possible while Aaron Rodgers rushes back from injury at record pace, which that in of itself is a wild topic that we need to cover in a separate video because I have never seen a player recover from an Achilles injury as quickly as Aaron Rodgers is. But even if so, Jalen Hurts had his worst game of the season versus the New York Jets and lost to Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. In that game, Jalen Hurts went 28 of 45, threw for 280 passing yards, had 1 passing TD, and threw for 3 interceptions. While Jalen Hurts did have a rushing TD on the ground, and A.J. Brown had a very dominant game in his own right with 7 receptions and 131 yards, it's definitely a cause for concern because up until that point, the Philadelphia Eagles were undefeated. And here you are losing to a team that definitely looked closer to being a top 5 draft pick as opposed to a team that could actually contend for winning in its own division. So the Philadelphia Eagles really had something to prove. You go from being being undefeated to losing 2 straight games, and that's definitely going to be cause for concern. At the same time, the Miami Dolphins need to prove that they're capable of defeating dominant teams in the NFL. Another cute storyline that I absolutely love about this matchup is how many ties there are to the Alabama Crimson Tide between these two teams. For the Philadelphia Eagles, man, you have Jalen Hurts, who famously was benched in Tua Tagovailoa's NCAA debut in the second half of the 2018 National Championship game, where Jalen Hurts famously gave this interview.
You know, we have a lot of guys in the QB room that play really well. And he stepped in and did his thing. Play your game, ball. You know, he's destined for stuff like this. You know, he has that it factor, and I'm so happy for him. Happy for this team.
But in addition to that, the Philadelphia Eagles have Devontae Smith. They recently signed Julio Jones, who went to Alabama, but way before Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts did. And they're facing off against Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle. Lots of Alabama Crimson Tide alumni in this game. Lots of stakes in this particular game. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, they have a difficult slate of games coming up as well. As after they face off against the Miami Dolphins, they go up against the Commanders, who they've defeated before, but by 3 points in overtime. And then the Dallas Cowboys before they face off against the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, and then the San Francisco 49ers before facing off against the Dallas Cowboys again. So they really need to set the tone here. You don't want to enter this next slate of games on a losing streak. With that being said, a lot is on the line for both of these teams. So how would it go? The Philadelphia Eagles would start us out with a 12-play drive that would result in a field goal. And after the Miami Dolphins would go 5 and out, the Philadelphia Eagles would get the ball back once again, where Jalen Hurts would fumble the football deep into his own territory. Now, this would put the Miami Dolphins in prime position to score a touchdown, and they would. Tua would find Tyreek Hill down the middle for a 12-yard touchdown, but thanks to an offensive holding penalty, the touchdown would get nullified. So the Dolphins would settle for a field goal, and the Philadelphia Eagles would start applying the pressure from here on out. A signature Philadelphia Eagles drive, 9 plays, 61 yards, resulting in a Dallas Goedert touchdown, and this is where the Dolphins started to get into some trouble because they would go 3 and out, and then the Eagles would get the ball back once again. Another big clock-chewing drive that resulted in a signature tush push by the Philadelphia Eagles to go out by 2 touchdowns. Now, luckily for the Miami Dolphins, they were able to clap back and get some momentum back before going into the half by Tua finding Tyreek Hill for a 27-yard touchdown, and then Jalen Phillips coming up with a big sack before the half. But a huge storyline at halftime was this is the most the Miami Dolphins have ever been slowed down this year. At the half, the score was 17-10. The Miami Dolphins scored the fewest points they ever have in a half and gained the fewest yards that they've ever had in one single half, 113. So whatever the Philadelphia Eagles were trying to do so far clearly was working. And for those of you guys wondering, yes, Julio Jones does look pretty good in Kelly Green. And the storyline going into the second half was, what were the Miami Dolphins going to do in response to this Philadelphia Eagles defense? I mean, in the first half, they gained -7 yards on the ground, which is very atypical for the Miami Dolphins. Even furthermore, one of their most critical pieces of their offense, Jalen Waddle, exited with a back injury. So who is going to step up to pick up the slack for an already struggling Miami Dolphins offense? At the beginning of the second half, we saw the Miami Dolphins continue to ride their momentum. The Philadelphia Eagles weren't able to make anything out of the first drive of the half, so they punted it back to the Miami Dolphins, who finally were able to get the run game going on the back of Raheem Mostert. But here's where it would get really interesting. On 3rd and 3 on the Philadelphia 21, Tua Tagovailoa would drop back, find a wide open Tyreek Hill once again, who would drop the ball, which is something you don't ever see because this was going to be a for sure touchdown if he was able to keep the ball, or at the very minimum a first down conversion. But what was even crazier was on 4th and 3, Tua Tagovailoa would drop back, look for Cedric Wilson, who wouldn't even get an opportunity at the ball because James Bradbury grabbed his face mask and threw him to the ground. Now, the refereeing in this game was very suspect, I want to say. I'm not a huge fan of always mentioning ref ball in particular games, but in this particular game, I want to say it was egregious. First, we got a really bad roughing the passer penalty on Jalen Hurts that resulted in the Philadelphia Eagles touchdown earlier in the first half, which I wasn't really going to bring up, but now you have this no call on James Bradbury, which resulted in a turnover on downs. Now, at this point, the Eagles had all the momentum in the game, but Jalen Hurts would drop back immediately and and would get intercepted by Jerome Baker, who would return it all the way for a touchdown to tie the game 17-all. And this is where the game got really interesting. So at this point, you would think that the Philadelphia Eagles would become deflated as ever and start to play even worse. But no, they responded with a vengeance on their very next drive. Jalen Hurts would lead an 8-play, 75-yard drive, which would result in a physical, grown man, A.J. Brown, 14-yard pass TD in order to take the lead once again. One of the things I loved about this game is it was so back and forth. The tide consistently would sway from one direction to the other, and the Miami Dolphins seemed like they were destined to tie the game once again. Tua would lead a 45-yard drive down the field all the way to the Eagles' 24-yard line until they would attempt a 24-yard pass to Raheem Mostert on the right-handed side, which would get intercepted by big play Darius Slay. And given how much time that was left in the game, the Miami Dolphins were clearly running out of time here. So here's where it would get a little controversial. So I'm going to do my best to stay in the middle here, because obviously if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you might feel a particular way. If you're an Eagles fan, you might feel another way. So here we go. The Philadelphia Eagles would make the most out of this opportunity, driving down the field in a huge clock-chewing drive that drove some football fans nuts. My personal guess why it drove so many people crazy is there were multiple 4th and 1s in this particular drive, and they would always end in the same result, with the tush push, aka the brotherly shove. The Philadelphia Eagles consumed 6 minutes and 35 seconds with this particular drive, and there came multiple instances where it seemed like the Miami Dolphins would be able to stop them. And if it wasn't the brotherly shove that would be their downfall, it would typically be, I don't know, a defensive offside called on Christian Wilkins on 3rd and 4. Here's the thing, and bear in mind, I'm a Cowboy fan. I hate the Eagles. I want them to lose. I'm yelling at my TV as much as the average Dolphins fan. But if we're being honest, even if Christian Wilkins wasn't called for in defensive offsides on that 3rd and 4, you were still going to get a 4th and 1 for the 3rd straight time on that particular drive. Do you think that this 4th and 1 was going to be any different, or do you think it was just going to result in another tush push that would result in a first down conversion? Either way, if anything, this defensive offsides probably helped the Miami Dolphins because maybe it saved some clock in this particular instance. Nevertheless, the Eagles would continue chewing up clock until they would get to the goal line, and it would result in a Kenneth Gainwell touchdown. The Miami Dolphins would just crater at this point. They would get the ball back once again down by 2 scores, and it wouldn't look good for the Dolphins from here on out. So the Eagles would end up winning this game. And I don't want to say that
The Dolphins are in huge trouble
or anything, because the Dolphins had some significant injuries coming into this game. Both their top 2 corners, Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, which on paper should be one of the better cornerback tandems in the NFL, were out. And the Dolphins seem to have been able to hold their own for the most part up until Tua's interception in the red zone against the Eagles. At that point, the Miami Dolphins defense wasn't able to stop the Philadelphia Eagles offense. You could have a conversation about whether or not the tush push is ruining these situations in football. I mean, it's really difficult to say whether or not it's the fact that the Eagles are just really good at running it, or if it's just a play that's very frustrating in general. The only reason it kind of bothers me is 4th and 1 should be a situation that has the average NFL fan on the edge of their seat. But now whenever 4th and 1 comes along, I just look at my TV screen and I'm like, oh, they're just going to do a tush push and it's going to be an automatic conversion. I don't really feel strongly that they need to ban it. I feel like they just have to look at the data at the end of the season and see on average how often does this play convert, and if it's the same for all teams across the board. For now, in the middle of the season, you can't ban it. This is going to be the year of the tush push. If there's ever a year, if there's ever a time they're going to ban it, it's going to be the end of the season. And to be honest, I think the Eagles run it better than everyone else. I've seen instances where it's failed, but I could understand the frustration if you're consistently getting them into 4th and 1 situations and you're not able to stop them because they're running the same play over and over and over again. At the end of the day, yeah, the Dolphins still have yet to beat a very tough opponent. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't play well against the New York Jets, but they were able to come out with a victory. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. If you're a Dolphins fan, are you feeling a little pessimistic about your future? If you're an Eagles fan, do you feel like last week was just a fluke? Do you think this year is your year once again? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.